I scaled my agency from 0 to 400K a month in just 12 months, and I can attribute that to answering this one question. How do I get chatters to do what I say? In that time, I trained over 40 chatters, so I saw things that worked, things that didn't, and I'm just going to be running you through what's been working for us. When I first started building out the chatting team, it was a huge mess. Didn't feel like there was any clear direction, felt like we weren't making progress. I'd tell people things one week and then the next week they're just back at the same old bad habits, whatever. So I realized the problem was that I was trying to enforce how I wanted things done exclusively with rules. So I just said, if this happens, you must do this. In this situation, always do this. And the problem is, in the chatting environment, there are so many things that can happen that you can't have a rule for everything. So what I thought might be a bit better is instead using a set of values as a framework for what to do when I'm not there, when I can't help you. So I came up with 5 or 6 different values that I thought best aligned with what I thought the ideal chatting team would look like, right? And I realized that I stopped needing to have rules. And it's a lot less effort to enforce values than to enforce a million rules. We came up with these 6 core values that we thought represented the best possible chatting team. So we work for creators, we do everything in the creator's best interest. Everyone spends, never count anyone out, don't call people time wasters, stuff like that. Play for the team, always think about the agency and the team's earnings rather than your own. Rise above challenges, always, whenever you have a difficult shift, things come up, issues, use that as an opportunity to prove something to yourself. Separate ourselves, a lot of agencies are terrible. Try to not fall into the usual tropes and do things differently, more effort, do it better, and make opportunities. Don't wait for the people to come to you, go to the people. Now, these are not the correct values. There are no correct values. These are just the ones that we thought best aligned with our idea of a great chatting team. Yours will probably look completely different, or pretty different, right? But once you've got a set of values, what we did was we just put these everywhere, in the Discord channel, on their dashboard where they can log in, log out, things like that. These are everywhere. Every time we're training, we're referring to these constantly. So you're going to see all the training techniques I'm going to show you, we're always referring back to these values. So we like to treat hiring as the first stage in the training process, and how we hire will depend on how many chatters we need and how soon do we need them. So let's say I need a team of 10 chatters and I want to get them as soon as possible. I'm going to reach out on every platform I possibly can, take as many calls as I can, talk to as many as I can, and probably hire a lot of them. Now, if I wanted 1 chatter and I didn't really need them urgently, I needed them just to cover this shift or weekend team, whatever it is, right? Maybe I can sort of be a bit more particular. But then it's like, what are you being particular with? Well, there's going to be your skills and values, and then there's their skills and values. Any new chatter that you speak to, right? So then it becomes, how big of a gap are you willing to train? Like, we're trying to build a bridge between these two, right? That's a great bridge. But we're trying to build a bridge between our skills and values and theirs. There's going to be more people that do not align with how you do things already than people that align with how you do things off the get-go. There probably will be some, but they'll be rare. So do you wait? Well, if we're taking on a big team, we don't really like to wait. Keep in mind, I'm not an English teacher. I don't teach people to speak English or how to use technology or how to have power that works. There are certain people that you just kind of get to disqualify, right? You don't want to be sitting around fixing grammar and stuff like that. It's not that hard to get people that can speak decent English. Now, there are certain things that we will look for that will make someone more favorable, but we'll be pretty lenient if we need a lot of chatters, right? Now, when I'm on the call with the chatter, I like to ask them these 3 questions, which will give me a pretty good idea of how they've been doing things. That is, What do you do with a new subscriber? Someone new subscribes, what do you do? How do you transition from small talk to selling? And what do you do when a subscriber doesn't buy something? Now, there's no correct answer to these questions, but that's going to give you a pretty good idea of how they've been doing things. So I would recommend that you ask those questions, because that will they will just go through your process of how they've been doing things, and you can sort of compare and see the gap, right? So you've chosen your chatters, you've chosen people, you've decided, I'm willing to put the effort in to get them to a skill level that I feel is acceptable for my agency. Now, the first thing I like to do is set expectations. We do that with a course that we built on Thinkific, which is just an online course hosting platform. I'd recommend that, but at the very minimum, I would say have some sort of written SOPs or written guides. I guess it's hard to make sure that they've read it. But keep in mind, you're not trying to put them through that and then go, okay, now you've learned. Because, okay, maybe someone's made a course that good. I definitely haven't. So, at this point, you just want a backbone so you can constantly refer back to it in the training. The course should go through pretty much your whole process in detail, and then you can just refer like, remember this, right? That's what that's for. After I've set expectations, I like to just move into some live training sessions. And now that's just going to involve myself or someone else literally sitting on the call with the chatter and giving them ongoing support, feedback, training while in the chatting environment. So the great thing about this is that we can use fast feedback loops. So people learn the quickest if you give them feedback fast. So if every time they do something, you go, oh, great, not so good, do this, whatever. If you do that quickly, you're going to have to tell them less times and they'll learn quicker. That being said, try to only focus on one point of improvement at a time. So when you first get the chatter on, they're probably going to be doing a lot of stuff you don't like. But some stuff is going to be more important than others. So then the trick is determining what you can teach them that is going to yield the best results the fastest. Let's say that that's building, having engaging conversations with subs, right? Like small talk, whatever. You think that's the most important thing. Literally only talk about that. Like only talk about that. Every time they do something, say, oh, I would have done this. Oh, that's great, whatever. You want to only talk about having engaging conversations with subscribers, if that's the most important thing. Now, once they've mastered that, that's when you move on to the next thing, right? Because if you try to teach them a bunch of things at once, they'll just make no progress on anything. It's better just to knock out the most important things one by one. Now, after the sessions, I like to make them record their takeaways. So, if the thing was small talk with subscribers, that's the one thing you did for that session, just make them write about how, the things they learn on how to have engaging conversations with subscribers. Now, this one's really important and I struggle with this a lot, but I realize that it's just not the way to do things. You don't want to save them. Well, every time that I would get a chatter and I would just come in and save them, every time something would go wrong, every time I was like, I can do this better, they literally learn to rely on you. And those chatters will be the ones that will just keep messaging you, go, what do I do here? What do I do here? There will be times during the live training sessions where they're like, I have literally no idea what to do. You can tell them what to do, but telling them what to do and doing it for them is very different. Don't give them the caption. Don't give them the message. Don't start typing for them. Make them figure it out. Okay. The way I see it, at the end of the day, if they ruin something with some new sub, they do something stupid, fine. But you'd rather have this one chatter be good than this one sub spend some money. This is going to have the higher return. As you're training them, always refer to the values. I probably should have wrote expectations as well, but you want to refer to the values and the expectations you set before with your course, with your SOPs. Just the purpose of this is we're giving them a clear direction. They at least know what they're striving for rather than just, you can't just say, I want you to be the best chatter ever. My idea of the best chatter ever and your idea of the best chatter ever is probably very different, right? And that's fine, but we need to make it clear what we want from them. And during the live training sessions, we're working towards that. So to summarize, we're giving feedback quick. Every time they do something that relates to the 1 point of improvement, we want to give them positive feedback or constructive criticism. Tell them what to do, give them help. That's fine, right? Try not to save them. Try not to just like swoop in and do everything for them. It's frustrating. They will fuck things up, but I promise you, the return on your chatter that you train well is going to be more than the return on this one sub. Okay, maybe not all the time, but you know what I'm saying. Whales are kind of rare. You know what I'm saying. And always be referring back to the values, right? Now, while live training is what we will always start with, and I think it's what helps them learn the fastest, if we really want to break down their skills and get through to them on another level, I like to use performance reviews. So performance reviews or chat reviews are our other primary style of training, and they involve just looking at past chat logs and sort of giving feedback and constructive criticism on that. Now, we like to just make looms, so we'll just make a loom. We like to make 1 to 2 reviews per chatter per week. Now, we used to do teams, so if you have a small chatting team, you can try doing it for the whole team. In my experience, when you do that, it takes accountability away from the individual chatter. So let's say you go, oh, Ben, like the way Ben was engaging with the subscriber leading up to the sale was a bit rushed, like it seemed low effort. Everyone's just gonna go, well, that's Ben's problem. Ben sucks, no, you know what I mean? So they're not gonna feel like it applies to them. Now, if you make an individual, like a personalized chat review, which is for that chatter, for each chatter, then they know like, oh, he's literally watching me, talking to me, right? Now, again, I like to just focus on 1 point of improvement. I like to do 1 point of improvement, ideally until they get better, but in this format, it kind of makes sense to just do like 1 point of improvement per review. You're only giving them 1 to 2 a week, so they should be able to handle it. Now, I've tried doing more than that. I was going through a Rambo period where I was doing like 4 chat reviews per chatter per week when the team was a bit smaller. And honestly, they stopped watching them as much. Well, they stopped watching them as much. They didn't seem to retain what I was saying. Like there's no return on that. So I think 1 to 2. If you can get 2 out, I think that's really good. But yeah, 1 point of improvement. Just don't go. Again, you're going to be reading through going like, there is so much that I want to point out right now. Like all I'm doing is reading it, and like you're reading out loud and you're cringing and you're like, why are you saying this? But, unless it's like a critical error, I would just choose your point of improvement and look for look for stuff that can help you explain that. Now, where do we find chats to actually look at? You don't want to look through all the chats. Well, I like to look at, I find this very important. When new subs subscribe, so we use Inflow. On Inflow, if you click on the little notifications tab, you can open up a chat box from the notification, right? So the new person subs, open the chat log and read the conversation from the opener to the build up, and then perhaps they went in and sold him, whatever. But that's going to give you a really good idea of how new subscribers are being dealt with, which in my opinion is one of the most important parts of the whole chatting thing. Now, when chatters are selling sequences, so if you look through the notifications and you can see, 20, 30, whatever it is, then that's a sequence, script, whatever you want to call it. I look at those a lot. I'll spend a lot of time looking at how sequences are being delivered. How are they transitioning into selling? How are they pacing the sequence? And this video is not about the right way to do that. I'm just saying, like, what do I look for to enforce, what I train, what I teach. Custom sales, if you see someone was selling a custom, they sold $500 something, I'll go and have a look, see how they pitched it, that sort of thing. And then I also specifically ask the chatters to tell me if there's any chats in particular they would like for me to review. So that could be something they've done well, something they did not so good, whatever it is. Again, I like to just get them to record their takeaways. At the end of the chat review, I'll say, we send the chat reviews out on Discord and we go, oh, just in the chat, can you just drop your takeaways? What are the actionable steps you're going to take to get better? This one is really hard. It's simple, but it's very hard to do, especially when you're having a bad day. Because when you're reading the chats and they're doing so many stupid things, like that's going to happen, especially at the beginning, like they're going to be doing so many dumb things. But if you just make it this like tangent about, like, why do you do this? Like, you never listen. I've told you this 20 times. No one's going to watch it, or they're going to watch it and just completely disconnect, because it doesn't seem like you're helping them. It seems like you're attacking them. So, I just try to focus on the positive. Even if they did everything else wrong, tell them the one thing they did right as well. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, sticking to the 1 point of improvement if you can. Now, key thing that I'm going to say again, refer back to the values, expectations. In the chat review, like, this is your leverage. Like, you can just say, like, this decision you made did not align with our values. Like, I love how you did this because that aligns really well with our values. That's what I'm saying. Like, the values are the whole backbone. So we're going to keep on referring to that. Something that was always important to me was creating a culture of improvement. And what I mean by that is creating an environment where chatters can get better by bouncing ideas off each other rather than just relying on you, because you want them to get better when you're not there, right? So the first step in doing that was having them on team calls. I found this so much better than, not having them on a call, because they'll actually ask each other for help. If it's just a free-for-all and they're all just doing their own thing, they'll just DM you. Or if you have a chat manager, they're just going to DM the chat manager and they're just going to be like bombarding them with questions. I found the moment I had them in a call, they started actually communicating and helping each other more. Now, depending on the size of your agency, you can have them in like one unified call or break it into teams. That's what we do. But the next part of this, and the most important part, is we look for specialists. So we look for chatters that are outstanding in different areas. Let's say selling sequences, selling customs, relationship building, and speed or opportunity spotting, right? These are all important aspects of chatting. Over time, you'll see that there are chatters that just do better in certain areas. And what I like to do is assign authority to that chatter in that area. So let's say Charlie is my sequence guy. He's great at selling sequences. He sells 20 sequences a day. Cool. Now, Jane wants help selling a sequence. She asked a question, I can jump in and go, well, you need to do this. I'm sure I can help. But I'd rather go, well, Jane, why don't you ask Charlie? He's good at selling sequences. And over time, they'll just start doing it themselves. And that has created an environment now where there's these figures of authority in certain areas, and that's where people are going to ask the questions. And then you're also going to build up those team members so their teaching and leadership skills improve as well. So that was a really big cheat code for us. Took a lot of stress off us, the chat manager, stuff like that. And it just made everyone get better as a whole. Now, a big part of creating that culture was team meetings. So we like to host 1 to 2 a week. That's one for the individual chatting teams, and then one for the whole agency with everyone on it. And for these meetings, we like to actually go in with purpose. We want to have our 1 point of improvement. So just one thing that we think is the most important. It's going to give us the most growth if we tackle that. If everyone starts killing it in this one area, that's what the meeting's going to be about. How do you find that? Well, you should be sort of aware of what's going on. But what we do is we look at the chat review data. So we'll look at what the focus has been for each of the chat reviews for the chatters over the past week. And we'll go, okay, well, the most people are struggling with selling customs, right? That is the biggest thing. So if we can get everyone better at selling customs, we're going to see the biggest growth. Now, to actually structure the meeting, we'll obviously start with just a discussion, but the way we order the discussion is important. So we like to discuss in order of confidence. So that means we will ask the lowest performing or the least confident chatter in that area first, and we'll say, how's your experience been selling customs? Where do you usually go wrong? How do you feel you can get better? Cool. We'll go from that person, then we'll move on to the, you sort of have to know this, or someone has to know this. Who's the next most confident, right? And we'll move all the way up, and then we're going to get to our specialist. So we would tell them in advance, be like, well, this meeting's going to be about customs. Jane, you're great at selling customs, so you're going to help us with this meeting. What we'll get her to do is prepare some chats that will help her to show everyone sort of how she's doing so well in that area. We can also review the chats from the other chatters and just go over it as a team, because this will be the only time that we're looking at chats all together, because usually it's just an individual chat review, right? So basically, you're going to let the specialist talk the most, and then only then do we ever jump in and say anything, right? Now that all goes back to that culture of improvement, but the reason that we order it like that is because I've found, at least, that if you just go on a tangent and I just tell them all about selling customs, they're just going to like nod. That's a great idea, boss. When are we done with this? Whatever, right? So you may not get that many varied perspectives. Everyone is literally just going to blindly agree with you. So doing that, everyone gets an opportunity to talk. Even the people that aren't that confident, they are going to have valuable insight. Everyone has valuable insight. I treat them all like they have valuable insight. But then we're going to, at the end, have the specialist talk, and then they can see where everyone is struggling. They can come together and figure out how they can help the most, and then we can go in, right? So that's how we structure them. It's nice and simple, but yeah, the biggest points are just that one point of improvement and that structured discussion. I didn't just change shirt for fun. The mic stopped working. I find the most difficult thing with training chatters to be reminding them of the same thing over and over and over again. Our best friend through this whole thing has literally just been repetition. I'm not sure if our training style is the best. It's worked for us. You may have a training system where you only have to tell them stuff once and they just do it. I commend you. I have no idea how to do that. But in my experience, momentum goes both ways. When we constantly put out performance reviews, live training sessions, put effort into meetings, everyone gets better as a team. But when we relax on that, we go, everything's going well, and we stop putting as much out, everything starts to slowly decline. Even for the best chatters we have, we're always looking for points of improvement. How can we keep them at this high level or take them beyond that? It's like that bridge. There's a gap between their skills and values and yours, and we're trying to build that bridge and maintain it. That's how we can keep them doing what we want, even when we're not there.